French Revolution. Yes, I'm live now. Willis Wandere on the French Revolution. We are speaking about the causes of the French Revolution for people pursuing a Dexel system of education. We are talking about the reasons. The French Revolution occurred in 1789, and we want to analyze some of the reasons that led to the French Revolution of 1789. Historians have asserted that when France sneezes, the whole of Europe catches a cold, or the rest of the world catches a cold. We want to look at both long-term and short-term immediate reasons that led to the French Revolution of 1789. Among them, and the first one will be the class system in France at that particular time. There were what we call class stratification in France at that particular time. And therefore, we had the first estate, the clergy, we had the second estate, the nobility, we had the third estate, the common man, and in the third estate, we also had the bourgeoisie, and we had the sans-culottes, and we had the peasants. So there was that strife of the classes, and therefore, because of that, then the different classes had perhaps to take action, particularly the third estate, which had a lot of burdens. They had to pay a lot of taxation at that particular time in France. Therefore, one of the reasons for the French Revolution will be the class system. The French Revolution can be compared to the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, where the issue of the workers as a class rose against the government of the Tsar Nicholas II at that particular time, and we had the first communist revolution in the world. So the issue of classes had perhaps been one of the leading causes for revolutions worldwide. The second reason for the French Revolution, one will be talking about the taxation system. The taxation system in France at that particular time was very bad, extremely bad. The first estate, the second estate did not pay taxes. The taxes were only paid by the third estate. Both direct and indirect taxes existed in France at that particular time. But the burden all of it rested on the third estate. We had taxes like Cabell, which sold tax. We had the poll tax. And in addition to that, the collection of taxes was bad. The tax farmers' taxes was bad. The tax farmers were very brutal. Somebody missing to pay taxes, they will loot and snatch their properties at that particular time. So the burden of paying tax led to the French Revolution of 1789. We are analyzing the reasons for the French revolutions, though doing advanced subsidiary level. The first option is the French Revolution, 1789 to 1799. The third reason for the French Revolution, one will be talking about the role of the philosophers, the intellectuals. They are the ones that created the awareness about the problems facing France at that particular time. We had people like Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Remember the famous quote that man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains, meaning that dictatorial government, autocratic governments chain men. Men are not able to have freedoms and liberties because of the dictatorship, because of the chains that are then make them not to be able to do what is supposed to be done. We had people like Baron de Montesquieu. Baron de Montesquieu coming up with the concept of separation of powers, which was one of the contributions of the philosophers even to the modern system of government, where we have three arms of government. We have the legislature, we have the judiciary, and we have the executive, and they check on each other. So the system of checks and balances evolved during the French Revolution of 1789. We said when France sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. That's the impact of the French Revolution. We are analyzing the role and the factors that led to the French Revolution. Apart from the contribution of the philosophers in France at that particular time, one will also talk about the weakness of Louis XVI. Louis XVI, at that particular time, one would also talk about the weakness of Louis XVI. Louis XVI was a king in name, but not in power. He was a weakling. He could not make the good decisions that were sound at that particular time. He loved hunting more than government affairs, and therefore the government issues were put aside when he was involved in gambling. The people surrounding him were corrupt. The royal court was extremely corrupt, and therefore Louis XVI would not be able to make sound decisions. Remember, even he wanted to run away in 1791 and was caught at the border town of Venaris and made the revolutionaries to be very much agitated against him. And that is something that made the revolutionaries to lose any trust they had in Louis XVI. And therefore, it is important to remember that the buck stops at the king. And who was Louis XVI at that particular time? So Louis XVI as a king did not play his role. And that definitely led to the revolution in 1789. We are looking at the reasons for the French Revolution. One of the external reasons for the French Revolution of 1789, one will adequately talk about the participation in the American War of Independence. And when we say it participated in the American War of Independence, which started in 1776, we had generals like Lafayette who went to participate in the American Revolution of 1776. And when they came back to France, they came up with democratic ideals which they wanted to be pursued in France. Remember the clarion call in the American Revolution of 1789 was not taxation without representation, and the coming home where the third estate given all the taxation. And remember also the Declaration of Independence, 14th July 1776, which perhaps also influenced the French Revolution. The French letter will declare the Declaration of and Citizens in October 1789, something copied directly from the American Revolution of 1776. We remember philosophers like Thomas Paine, who wrote the Common Sense, and they will come an example, really inspired the French people to fight for their liberties, to fight for their rights at that particular time. So the influence was a major reason in the French Revolution of 1789. That is something that played an essential role in the revolution at that particular time. Alongside that, we had the English philosophers also influencing the French Revolution. The French philosophers borrowed ideas from the English philosophers, people like John Locke, people like Thomas Hobbes. Remember, Thomas Hobbes had said that life in a dictatorship is short, nasty, and brutal, and therefore it's important to remember the English people also influenced the French Revolution at that particular time. The French Revolution, 1789, being one of the greatest events in modern history, so radical, so influential that still its echoes are still sounding at that particular time, but still analyzing the reasons for the French Revolution of 1789. One of the issues, the financial quagmires that were in France at this particular time. We are talking about the country becoming bankrupt at this particular time, and therefore they could not be able to run its affairs. The financial situation was in deficit, where the revenue God could not be able to run the government at that particular time. There were attempts to reform the financial situation in France at that particular time, but the situation definitely ran out of control at that particular time. On top of that, we had economic issues like the bad harvests leading to food hungers in major towns in France at that particular time. And because there was a lot of population increase, then the government was not able to run its own affairs at this particular time. And therefore, the situation became so bad at that particular time that will force Louis XVI, 5th May 1789, to discuss how to solve the situation, especially the financial situation in France at this particular time. We remember the Estates General had never met for 175 years, but because of the financial situation, Louis XVI had but no other way but to call the Estates General. And when it meets, there's going to be a lot of controversy. And this controversy will perhaps run out of control, leading to more events that definitely will lead to France establishing the First Republic in 1792. The meeting of Estates General, when it met, the voting issue became a big issue. Previously, only the two estates used to gang together, the first estate and the second estate, and they had more votes, and therefore the third estate could be outsmarted, and therefore when they met, the third estate now said they're going to vote according to population, not according to classes, and therefore that became one of the controversies that Louis XVI could not solve. Then, apart from that, there was a list of grievances which the third estate wanted to be tackled, which Louis XVI did not want. Therefore, the third estate had to declare themselves as the National Assembly and started meeting separately and invited these other estates to come and join them. The king became a bit clever and told them that he wanted to repair the place where they're meeting, but the third estate, being very defiant, moved to the nearby tennis court. That is the tennis court oath, 20th June 1789, where we had the third estate swearing that they're not going to disperse until a new constitution is given to France. At that particular time, the situation has now moved out of hand, leading to more radical scenarios like the storming of Bastille, which was one of the first violent acts. Bastille, which was a notorious political prison. We remember where the people who had perhaps criticized the government. We remember the letters decachet, where the king could issue just a letter, and then you'll be locked in. You'll be taken to detention at that particular time. That's where a majority of the people were in Bastille. So the storming of Bastille, 14 July 1789, where led by the Sans-Culottes, the people stormed Bastille particularly to get arms to defend themselves, because there was a rumor which was going around that Louis XVI wanted to invite foreign countries to come and invade the revolutionaries, and therefore they had no otherwise but just to get arms and defend themselves. The French Revolution, very interesting to remember that when France sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. We tend to look at the situation in France at that particular time and some of the issues that led to the people to take actions at that particular time. We've mentioned the Sans-Culottes, who were the urban poor at that particular time, and they're going to play a very, very essential role, becoming the foot soldiers of the French Revolution, participating in some of the most dramatic scenes of the French Revolution. We remember the March of Women to Versailles in October 1789, the Wailing Women who went to demand that the king come back to France at that particular time. The Sans-Culottes also participated in that. And the Sans-Culottes will also be very active during the reign of terror, where perhaps many people lost lives during that reign, where we had during the reign of terror, where perhaps many people lost lives during that reign, where we had a lot of bloodshed and violence in France at that particular time. That is between 1793 to 1794, where we're going to have really people being killed because it was deemed that they were lukewarm towards the revolution at that particular time. Both internal issues, like we're just seeing, and external issues pushed the French people to wage a revolution against the government of Louis XVI at that particular time. And perhaps what we have not mentioned among the reasons for the French Revolution, we're talking about the influence of the wife, Maria Antoinette, coming from Austria, being arrogant, being a heavy spender. Remember the diamond necklace scandal that threw the whole country into perhaps knowing what was happening inside the family of Louis XVI, and perhaps wanted to use even his brother-in-law, King Leopold of Austria, to come and assist Louis XVI. So much hated was Maria Antoinette that it became a big issue. Looking at the French Revolution of 1789, we are trying to look at what happened in France at that particular time to lead to one of the greatest revolution in the world at that particular time, influencing even the modern institution up to this particular moment. Talk about the human rights issues, most of them captured during the French Revolution, and the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, which in most of the modern days, you talk about the clauses, let's say about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, most of it captured in the French Revolution of 1789. For those of us pursuing advanced subsidiary history, a Dexel system, the French Revolution is one of the units. Today, we want to pause there and end this session till next time when we will be looking at the events of the French Revolution, dividing them in moderate phase, divide them in radical phase, divide them during the reign of directory, and look at the Napoleonic era. I need more feedbacks from you as we stream live some of these sessions. Thank you for attending today's lesson. Remember, Mr. Willis Wandere, you can subscribe back to my channel again. Thank you. Let's meet in the next lesson.